my own face, oh brother, are you gonna leave me wasting away on the streets of Philadelphia? I walked the avenue till my legs felt like stone. I heard the voices of friends vanished and gone. At night I could hear the blood in my veins, just as black and whispering as the rain on the streets of Philadelphia. Ain't no angel gonna greet me. It's just you and I, my friend. And my clothes don't fit me no more. I walk 1,000 miles just to slip this skin. The night is falling, I'm lying awake. I can feel myself fading away. So receive me, brother, with your faithless kiss. Or will we leave each other alone like this on the streets of Philadelphia?
There's a fire starting in my heart, reaching a fever pitch and it's bringing me out the dark. Finally, I can see you crystal clear. Go ahead and sell me out and I'll lay your ship bare. See, I'll leave with every piece of you. Don't underestimate the things that I will do. There's a fire.
Pictures of me in the world. And then, oh, microphone's on.
The scars of your love remind me of us. They keep me thinking that we almost had it all. The scars of your love, they leave me breathless. I can't help feeling we could have had it all.
I think they said to start whenever we want to start.
Microphone on.
Shall we start?
My microphone doesn't work.
Yeah?
What else?
I think
Microphones are all on.
Mine does.
Does
So
mine?
thank you. Yeah, we happy?
We're happy.
It's really weird. We can still hear yourself, and then I'll get used to it. I promise I'll get better. Really nice to see everybody here today. So I think I can't be here without mentioning that kind of the last time we were here was pretty much the last event that we did before we went into lockdown. I remember we packed up our stand and got told by our kind of manager, go home and work from home for a few weeks, and then we'll come, back and it'll all be back to normal, and that never really happened. So I think it's quite an achievement that we're back here today, and I'm feeling a tad bit emotional that we've managed to make it through. And I would say let's do a big round of applause, but maybe there's not too many things in the world currently to celebrate. But we want to talk about good things here today. So my name's Marsha. I work and the partnerships team at Adyen. So we're a global payments provider, and we work with a whole host of wonderful partners, two of which are with me today. And we basically make sure that merchants are providing the best payment experiences for their customers, online and in-store as well. And then joining me is Luigi from Calashock.
Good morning. Luigi from Calashock. We're a specialist BigCommerce systems integrator. We work with SMEs and mid-market brands implementing on BigCommerce, working with Adyen as well for solutions.
Yeah. And David as well.
Hello everyone, I'm David. I'm a Senior Solutions Engineer at BigCommerce. The platform that's priding ourselves on being the only e-commerce platform that's SaaS-based for all stages of merchant growth.
Fabulous. So obviously we all know that commerce and e-commerce has boomed and changed, and we're hearing all of these buzzwords that are kind of flying around. So we wanted to kind of really take a step back and have a look at, you know, what we as three partners that work together experience with merchants, what they want to talk about, what they're influenced by, what they want to achieve on their digital transformation journeys, and share with you a couple of stories of merchants that we've worked together on, and you know, there'll be time for questions at the end as well. So really it's let's take a step back and have a look at kind of what direction merchants are going today. So Luigi, you're usually kind of the first point of contact really for merchants when they're at the start of that digital transformation journey or whatever it is they're calling it, and you go into that discovery phase with them. What are merchants asking for? What are their kind of top priorities now?
So I think if we liken discoveries today to what it was like 2 years pre kind of COVID,
Yeah.
they're certainly looking for systems that will help them grow because they recognise that e-commerce has become a lot more competitive. So I must admit we've got a lot of pushback from recommending certain partners pre-COVID, but I think now there's really no choice. But if you're trying to achieve that growth that you need in order to really make it in e-commerce now, you've got to evaluate all aspects of your business and how the partners can help you to achieve efficiencies and achieve growth towards the objectives that you're trying to reach. So, and I think because this growth with e-commerce comes with an element of complexity, there's a lot of new players on the market, products have evolved, and I think they're looking for expertise and advice to help them navigate, because it's not as easy as it was 2 years ago now. So many things have changed. We take out the competition aspect, it's also, you know, being omnipresent really. They want online, offline, in-app, on marketplaces, and how do you gel that all together? Because margins are under pressure, supply chains are under pressure, so they need to make sure that they're making the whole operation as efficient as possible, and they're retaining customers as much as possible. So it's no longer a case of set up a website and you invest some time in it. It is looking at every single aspect of your business and how it connects with the e-commerce operation.
Yeah. So it was interesting you said about, you know, how 2 years ago there might have been some reluctance to have a look at certain aspects. Can you give an example of what merchants are more willing to talk about now than they perhaps used to?
I think it's a lot of kind of back office stuff. So we work with PIM platforms that I think a lot of merchants just assumed was kind of a luxury. But actually, if you're looking at selling on marketplaces, you're looking at selling internationally on different websites, different domains, you need a central repository that has all that information in there. But not just the database, but also manages the quality of the products and the data that you're going to keep. So it's really evaluating the entire ecosystem. And not taking for granted that that's the way that we always did it. It is trying to find partners that are pushing the boundaries of their industry, are investing in future-proofing their platform, that then bring the merchants along with them.
Yeah. And when you're kind of speaking to merchants about, you know, tech partnerships or you know, you offer them different providers for different things, what is key in their decision making? So what makes them choose, you know, for example, one payments partner over another?
From my experience, we position ourselves as kind of, with our expertise at BigCommerce and our partners, so we're not kind of a traditional e-commerce agency. So a lot of the merchants that come to us come for that expertise and that know-how and that knowledge. But what we've found, or what we recommend work for our merchants, is partners that are investing in research and development and innovation, seeing where the market's going and just trying to be leaders in that rather than kind of following. So obviously we work with Adyen, and it works great for a lot of our merchants who want to internationalise their operations. It means that if they're spinning out a website in the Benelux, or they can use Ideal if they're going into Germany and so forth, and they haven't got to say, right, I've got one payment company in the UK, another one for that region, another one for the Nordics. So they get to know the platform that they're working with and the partners they're working with, and they can also then capitalize on all the new features and the expandability that comes with that. So for us, it's very much trying to future-proof the next stage of their growth and putting them in touch with partners that are going to support them in that, rather than kind of reaching this glass ceiling and saying, right, you're now being held back. You're now not growing because of the partner that we've put you in touch with or we've integrated isn't going to allow you to grow. And I know that I'd hate to feel constricted and say, right, I can't actually grow anymore with this partner because they hold me back, and now I've got to go through a whole exercise of replatforming or reevaluating a vendor. So we do select our partners based on the expandability and what they're investing in the openness of the platform. And kind of from a BigCommerce perspective, I think we wouldn't be able to achieve half of the kind of enhanced capabilities and features that we implement for our merchants if it wasn't for the fact that BigCommerce is just such an open platform. It's the only platform we work with. Yeah. So it's not that we try to kind of get BigCommerce and fit it to the merchant. We've just got that functionality to plug into the APIs and off we go. Yeah. So if we've got a situation where a merchant says, right, I want to consider headless in 2 years' time, or I want to kind of launch an app to retain customers in 2 or 3 years' time, we'll evaluate the vendors and the providers and say, right, this is one that's going to support you in that growth, and not that, well, when you come to that, we'll have to reevaluate and see what's on the market.
Yeah, and we see it a lot in the payment space as well when we're working with merchants that are wanting to grow and expand, and the kind of key to success from a payments point of view when it comes to internationalization expansion is payment methods relevant to whichever region they're wanting to sell into. So you kind of have merchants that spend so much time on the look and feel of the site and getting the customer to the basket, and then all of a sudden the payment method's not available, or it automatically there's a risk of losing that merchant. So David, you sat there wonderfully in the corner there. What challenges are you seeing kind of merchants coming to you with? What are they wanting to achieve with their choice of e-commerce platform?
I think you made a really good point, Luigi, on the customer retention, customer acquisition piece. It's really expensive, much more expensive than it used to be to acquire customers online. They're all coming in from different angles. You can skip past 12 brands, 15 brands on TikTok or Instagram Shop where just keep going without actually getting onto a site and getting to your point, onto the product page and into the checkout page. So that's why it's harder to get that customer right the way through. So merchants are asking us, how can we make this easier? How can we make seamless shopping for things like finance payment providers? You need to move those widgets up further in the journey so the customer knows how much I have to pay every month, all of those things, but they need to be flexible. So when we do builds with agencies like Calashock, we're making it easier using built-in functionalities like the page builder on BigCommerce, to, of course, hard code the things that need to be hard coded. But
it's you, that's that makes
but giving more power in the hands of merchandisers so they can make their store look and feel really good in a really agile way. So they're the key topics I think come up a lot.
And how do you, so obviously that there's so many different e-commerce platforms to choose from, and as Luigi was saying, that some of them can be perhaps restrictive when it comes to growth. Do you see merchants coming to you with that kind of forward, long-term planning, we can grow with you type of approach?
Yeah, so we've coined the phrase open SaaS, which basically brings together all of the openness and flexibility of platforms like Magento, which were open source. You can get the source code, customize the hell out of it, do anything you want with those type of platforms, which is great. But websites are order-taking systems, and merchants are usually not technology companies. So what we need to do with our platform is give merchants flexibility like that, but at the same time take on all of the responsibility for hosting, infrastructure, PCI compliance that other SaaS platforms like Shopify do. But usually they're super restrictive. So all of our framework is built on non-proprietary coding languages, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, which allow you to do literally anything you want on that storefront, or build out things like PWAs, native mobile apps, which basically allows us to say to merchants, look, this could be your last ever full replatform. In the future, you can change just composable parts of your architecture and be super agile.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So if I was a question to both of you really, so whoever wants to go first, if I was a merchant and I came to you and I said, I want to be successful, what 3 things would you say I would need in order to be successful? What are the payments obviously is going to be one of those things. I told them to say that. But what 3 things do you think a merchant needs for success?
Merchants ask us, okay, how can we have a lower total cost of ownership? How can we have an e-commerce platform and an architecture which is built for really good growth? And that brings to your point, serious internationalization, not just language translations, but payments that go with localized payment gateways into actual localized merchant IDs for those different currencies, true reconciliation. And then when I say true internationalization, I'm talking about not just a website for France and a website for Germany, but different customers shop different ways. So having an architecture where you can target people based on segment, B2C and B2B, and also multiple brands of your website. Someone like La Perla, who are on BigCommerce, have their main La Perla website, which is international with all those payment methods, but they also have La Perla Beauty. So one merchandising team can do all of that in the same back end.
And Luigi, same to you. 3 things.
So I think kind of agility is really important, and that was demonstrated with COVID, that actually, fine, not to kind of preempt, but I think we're unlikely to find ourselves in the same situation we were 2 years ago, but really a lot of the big merchants, and maybe even the small ones, just didn't know what to do because they couldn't turn that big ship around quickly enough. So I think it's the agility to be able to make decisions, and kind of composable commerce, I think that's yet to be defined, but there is clearly a market for kind of being able to pick and choose and without having a full re-platform. I think kind of piggyback on to that is flexibility, so and scalability. So it's saying, right, this is kind of where I want to achieve, or this is what I want to achieve in the next 2 to 3 to 4 years. I want to kind of be able to add those functionalities, or being able to kind of extend the run on that platform, on the partner that I'm working with, rather than have to like chop and change every 2 or 3 years. The internationalization aspect I think is really important. It's a 50-50 thing, because we see merchants that probably after Brexit took a step back and said like, right, we're not doing it because it's too complicated. More so I think on a B2B side. And there's others that say, well, actually this is a massive opportunity for us. And there's platforms like Avalara that will help you on the tax side of things. So it does make it easier to kind of take that on. But to David's point, you do need to internationalize that experience. So the way that somebody buys in France is going to be different than the way that somebody buys in Italy. It needs to be a locally translated website, SEO localized for that territory, payment methods I've touched on before with so and so on, and you can't copy and paste cookie cutter that kind of thing for all the other markets. You need to invest. So it's really important from that perspective that you have that freedom, I guess, to make those choices rather than say, well, we have to do it this way because.
Yeah. I mean, we see it in payments a lot as well, where they're being seen increasingly as a strategic tool. So both of them did mention payments because it is important, not just because I told them to. So how do you use payments, to strategically grow rather than just seeing it as a commodity? It's something that you put on the end and it's a necessary evil. And we often have to go through that journey with merchants to almost re-educate them to have a think about payments in a useful way rather than just it is what it is. And we say to them, what is your payment provider doing for you? What could they be doing? What should they be doing for you? Are they feeding data back to you? Are they, advising you on regions when you're looking to expand there? Are merchants becoming more savvy in terms of what the expectation is of the providers that they're working with? So, when you speak to merchants, what should an e-commerce platform be doing for them?
They've definitely become more savvy. I think because of that composable nature of the architecture, it's no longer one tool that does everything. You no longer rely on one SI to build loads of things out. Now other technology partners are coming in and saying, okay, we need this payment gateway. We're really good at doing fast checkout or reconciliation, fraud. So they're definitely more savvy, and they're speaking to more vendors who specialize in different areas. So. It's really important that you can plug and play those things and change as you change your strategy as well.
I think they're becoming savvy because, like you touched on, data is really freely available. I think there is this risk of kind of paralysis by analysis where you just get too much data. But fundamentally, if you collate the right data to be able to make those decisions, you can then become savvy and say, right, this is something that we're missing. I see with a lot of kind of smaller merchants, they don't implement heat mapping software. So they assume that the customer is navigating in a particular way. And when we do the discoveries, or even kind of the pre-sales, we urge them, say, look, just use something like Hotjar, Crazy Egg, just get some kind of software in there to understand what your customers are doing. And that will then allow you to make better decisions post-launch. So one of the most recent merchants, they kind of merchandise their homepage in a particular way with categories or whatever. We put on the heat mapping tool and it completely threw them 90%, which is average. I kind of had told them, but I guess the proof was there. The majority of kind of visitors used the search functionality. That then meant that they were able to explore and invest in enhanced search providers. So it then allowed them to kind of offer this enhanced search not based on assumptions, because sometimes you can get so involved in your business you don't actually see what other people see. Touching on, you kind of said about localized payments, I wanted to add earlier, is that the checkout is getting a lot of interest at the moment from a CRO perspective. It's always been there, but it's incredible how much detail is involved in crafting a fluid checkout experience. And it's not just about layout, it is about things like autocomplete to reduce errors on addresses, but also then, like you say, payment methods. If you've spent money acquiring that customer, maybe nurturing them during the process, you've given a fantastic user experience, and then just before they press place order or pay, haven't got their payment method that they really like. And compound that into like, however many. So that's really important to kind of understand. Don't just assume you can plug in, a payment provider that somebody recommended to you. Like really do your research and kind of try to see how that platform can help you on your journey over the next 2 years or whatever it is that you've got planned.
And we see where payment methods are available that are trusted, the customer's more likely to buy, they're more likely to spend more. So it really all adds up in the long run. We had some great news yesterday that was announced that Ted Baker had gone live with BigCommerce, and this was a project that obviously Adyen supported as well. So Ted Baker, big enterprise merchant, multi-channel. Congratulations, first of all. And what did they come to you with? What did Ted Baker want to achieve by working with Adyen and BigCommerce?
We're super excited to have Ted Baker. It's an amazing brand. They came to us from a crazily customized version of Hybris. Maybe 10 years ago, Hybris was great, but you can customize it in a really great way, but that tied them up. It became extremely difficult to release changes, to change the order of products on a PDP, or to do a promotion. They've got 12 stores on BigCommerce, all managed from the same back end using our multi-storefront functionality, and they wanted to have full omni-channel processes with BigCommerce and Adyen. So they've got 200 stores in the UK, they do click and collect, reserve in store, all of these things are available now on the site, and they've got, I think it's 7 languages for all of their worldwide stores now on BigCommerce. So they needed agility, back to your point, Luigi. I think that's super important for them, with a small e-commerce team managing a lot of products and millions of customers, and lots of transactions in really close sales periods. They have massive amounts of traffic, so the platform obviously can't fall over, and they need to be able to personalize that experience for their different customer bases. So they're doing all of that big data stuff that you just mentioned, with BigCommerce, with Bloomreach on the front end, and with Adyen powering payments.
Yeah, and from a payments point of view, that consolidation piece, those payment methods, that single back office, that allows them to be able to track all of those different parts of their business in one place, so one source of truth. And I think often we talk about these big merchants, we talk about Ted Baker, but there's a lot of mid-market merchants as well that are really aspiring to grow and probably actually are even more interesting when it comes to the journey of digital transformation and what they're considering. So we worked on a merchant with you called Shop Fitting Warehouse, that Adyen and Calashock worked together on. Tell us a little bit about their journey, because I imagine in some ways it was very different to Ted Baker, but in others similar.
Yeah, so they're predominantly B2B merchant, do retail display equipment. And a few years back, kind of the founders recognised the opportunity that was available, even kind of pre-COVID, that they wanted to really capitalise on. They are pure online, so didn't have a necessity for kind of omni-channel. But their platform at the time was holding them back, wasn't giving them, because even though the lines between B2B and B2C are fudged, I think there is a lot more overlap. The reality is that there are still differences in the experience, and their platform wasn't allowing them to do that. So we're able to kind of leverage BigCommerce to offer them that kind of B2B solution, and then kind of plug in partners that were able to maintain the growth that they were currently on, but also then kind of propel them. We did a lot of work in the back end as well. So again, it's not just one e-commerce website, but there is kind of a whole infrastructure in the back end. And we've also been able to build out, they're considering headless at the moment, we've been able to build out a new feature that should be rolling out next quarter that will give them a competitive advantage over their kind of competitors. So what they were looking really was a platform that had that runway for growth, and I think kind of touching on David's point around BigCommerce, it does allow for us to kind of future-proof the experience. So right, there's this glass ceiling, and once you reach that, you're going to have to re-platform. With a lot of merchants, it is the last major re-platform they'll do. Because when you get to sell, you can look at headless solutions to kind of expand it even further, like Ted Baker did with BigCommerce. So they were looking for a platform that would just allow them to focus on the business rather than the technology, and put in place partners that would kind of be problem-free and just we're going to seamlessly connect and kind of give them the back office operations, I guess, that again provide them the data, made it easy for them, and I guess put in efficiencies that would save them money in the long run as well.
Yeah. And what impact has that had on them as a business? Have they seen an increase in the amount of traffic that they have coming through, sales? What's been the outcome of that?
Yeah, so there's a lot of kind of features that we've been able to leverage that are native to BigCommerce to kind of maintain the visibility. But I think one of the things that's really helped them is being able to look forward and start getting excited about implementing new features and new ideas. Whereas before it was like, we can't do that, so let's not even go there. But now they're actually kind of asking us, and they are pushing the boundaries. We're seeing that with a lot of merchants. Multi-storefront is going to be fantastic because they've also got a B2C operation. So it means from one back end, they'll be able to manage several storefronts rather than say, right, this is one website and this is another, and so on.
Yeah.
So it's...
Oh, sorry. What's really good about Shopfit and Warehouse is their products are really complex. They sell chromeware shelving. You can go in as a B2C customer, fill out your garage with this chromeware shelving, which comes in a remarkable amount of heights, widths, depths, strengths, with wheels and loads of different variations. They're tracking all of that on their e-commerce platform. You can go in, do that B2C journey, but at the same time, I think what's maybe helped increase their revenue is they're personalising the experience for what's the difference between how a sole trader shops compared to a partnership or a limited company. They're all doing things slightly differently, more likely to do bulk ordering, that sort of stuff. And I think that's quite important for Shopfit.
Yeah. So I mean, it's all around kind of being able to get excited and say, right, where are we going? Where can we go?
Yeah.
Rather than just kind of say, look, we have to do this because it's out of our control.
Yeah. And David, you mentioned kind of personalisation, and again, there are so many words that fly around the e-commerce space. Is that something that merchants are now looking as standard? Retention is king, and how do you keep customers happy? You personalise their experience.
In B2B especially, or B2C, giving things like relevant recommendations for if you're searching for a car or something like that. They want to give you recommended products for parts that are compatible with that object, right? But in B2B, even more important, relevant promotions for the limited company. Maybe they negotiate their own price list. That type of personalisation is coming up on a very regular basis every day. People are asking for that type of feature.
And when it comes to loyalty, so we do quite a lot within Adyen around loyalty and how we capture card data and how we then use that data to feed it back into the merchant to inform their activities around loyalty and customer retention. Do you have merchants that are thinking around loyalty, that speak to you about what they can do around that piece?
We've seen an increase in the number of merchants that are considering and implementing loyalty. I think because it's becoming so expensive to acquire new customers, advertising is becoming more difficult. Everyone's vying for kind of the attention. You've got to make sure that when you get the customer, you do everything you can to keep them. And if that means, I mean, loyalty is one aspect. At the end of the day, you can have the best loyalty system, but if you don't look after that customer, if you're always giving them, kind of grief with late deliveries or out of stock or whatever, then they're going to leave you anyway. But I think loyalty is just one of those subtle things that, fine, there's a small cost attached to it, but in the long run, when you evaluate the lifetime value, then it kind of is negligent in some respects, and it just means that customer's got an incentive to come back and spend money with you.
Yeah.
So loyalty is kind of hugely important, but it has to fall in with the fact that you are offering a good service and you're giving them other reasons to stick with you.
Yeah, definitely. So we've got around 10 minutes left, and we do want to open the floor to some questions. So I'll just ask you one more question each, if that's okay. Same one to both of you. What's going to be the kind of biggest trend over the next year in this space? What do you see really taking it by storm?
For us, it's omni-channel and internationalization. We spoke already a lot about international. We're releasing features to all of our merchants to allow them to natively link all of their products to social medias, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, all those things. These are the requests we're getting all the time, so that's a massive trend. But to Luigi's point as well, those separate storefronts for different types of customers are something that I think people are asking a lot about at the moment, and that solves so many problems for customer retention.
Yeah.
And I think it's really convenient as well. Like, you have to remember that everything you do is going to take up time, so if you can make it as convenient as possible for your merchants to run their business. I think social commerce is going to be huge. Well, it's big anyway, but it's going to be huge because there's a lot of mistrust in the world at the moment. Millennials do not trust big business, and so actually, ironically, one of the ways to gain clarity and get a true picture of whether a brand can be trusted is through social media. And so if the attention is there, you've got to make sure that your website connects with that so that you can make it, again, really easy for people to kind of make that choice and buy. So social commerce for sure is going to be one. And then kind of X-commerce, just there isn't online, offline, or there's just commerce. It's if customers want to buy online and return in store, or vice versa, buy in a store and return it to a central, you've got to start offering those things. You can't fragment your experience and say, well, you bought that in the shop, take it back to the shop, and you bought that online and send it back to us, to the warehouse. And it also means that merchants get the benefit of a single kind of customer profile, because if you're using kind of your marketing stack correctly, you'll be able to market to them whether they buy online or offline, because you'll have that information segmented. Obviously, from a payments perspective, if you do have online and offline operations, having one provider means you've got data on that customer from one single source, rather than having to then work in the back end and correlate and put all that together. And it goes down to convenience. Yeah. So I think it's recognizing that the customer wants to shop everywhere with your brand, and if you're going to make it difficult for them, they'll drop you at
Yeah. I think brand loyalty is not as common as it was previously, and actually there's so much choice that if you're not happy with the experience in one place, you can easily go find it in another. And as a millennial, I think I've bought so much stuff on Instagram I do not need. It doesn't fit, but they keep coming at me with these adverts, so it does work. Any questions from anybody in the audience? We really want to see kind of what you think the biggest trend will be. What are you seeing is going to be big this year?
Mate, can I just add something then?
Yeah.
While people think of a question. But really, mobile is so important at the moment. Like, there isn't mobile responsive websites. You really need to look at mobile as a separate experience. So if PWAs aren't on your radar, then you're already a few years behind. And I think the majority of merchants are behind on that. So PWAs, progressive web apps, are a must-have.
Yeah.
And then also digital wallets. I don't mean to kind of purposely bring it back to payments, but it's really important. The example that I always use is that if you imagine kind of, I don't know, you're in bed, or your wife is in bed and kind of just shopping on a mobile phone, wants to buy something and doesn't have her purse. If you offer Apple Pay or Google Pay or all the other digital wallets, then they can check out because we've got our thumbs or our facial recognition. If they've got to get out of bed, go downstairs, find their purse, put in their...
It's not going to happen, is it?
It's not going to happen, and you've lost them. As I said, it goes back to me saying how checkout is really important. So really do see from a mobile perspective, there's a separate experience on desktop. The conversion rates on desktop are still higher, so you need to kind of figure out why are people not checking out on mobile as much as on desktop. Is it a lack of trust? Is it a lack of clarity? But just make sure that...
Usually because my battery dies before I manage to... I'm always on 2%.
So, I mean, PWA is a really fast loading website, so that's one of the reasons you can get through the experience faster.
Yeah. No, that's fabulous. Any questions? No. One thing also, when you talk, so this is where we start getting passionate about what we do when we end up on the phone for an hour, don't we? We just talk about, oh, have you heard this and have you heard that? The change in in-app payments, so allowing third-party payment providers to process payments at a significantly lower rate than they were paying for Google and Apple. So I think that will also be quite a gateway for more merchants to kind of get into that space, because I think it will be more cost effective for them than it previously has been.
We always look for partners that have a really solid and comprehensive API stack, because that again gives us the flexibility to say, right, out of the box we can't do it, but we can really kind of customize. It's imperative, because again we have to look kind of so broadly. It's not just about the website, it is about apps, it is about in-store, and all these different systems.
I'm going to take it that there's no questions, no comments.
Excellent.
We'll give you some time back then. Thank you so much for coming and being with us today. And like I said, it's really lovely to see you and be here again. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
I've often felt like I was born under a bad sign, wearing suffering like a silk garment or a spot of blue ink, looking for light and finding a hole where there shouldn't be one. I cannot communicate the depth of the feeling. Truth is, I'm still learning to be open about this, but know